Welcome back, guys, here for another episode of my weekly funding journey. Going to go through everything as usual, starting off with the funded challenges. How are we doing? We're still sitting on 100k on Think Capital. We haven't took any trades this week. I do though, even though I wasn't going to do a video, I want to show you guys exactly how to act when you're not trading. Obviously, sitting out is long and it's boring. I want to really hone in how to be active whilst not trading. And by that, I mean setting up for your next move, because if you're not on it, you will miss the move. And I don't want you guys missing moves because you've been lazy and you've not kept up to date with the charts, because it's very easy to walk away for a week. But I'm still as much active on the charts now as I am when I'm trading. So yeah, you can see that no changes in these phase one accounts here. Funded account is down 1R. We're also down 2% on the funded, and we're up 4.5% on phase one. So yeah, 15 trading days, one trading move in the last 15 trading days, or two positions, one idea. If we go to the dollar index, and I spoke to you guys last week about really overall in the index, as much recently, we don't like holding above 107. Of course, as we've now seen a huge weekly candle engulf that and the next key level at 104, I really want to take a look to the left. So I'm already starting to eye up. What did we do before? Because we saw a push down. We've had identical movement in regards to, yep, this is higher and it's in the next zone compared to this. But the same thing happened. And after we saw that big bearish candle here, we saw a retest and a continuation. So in my head now, I'm looking at, are we going to get that continuation? Obviously, on the monthly time frame, we have already seen around this area that we have reluctancy to close below it instantly. What I'm now going to look at is how the monthly closes. We're only halfway through. We could easily see price close below it, but I think we're going to have trouble initially around this area. So I'm looking out at us having issues below this area. Obviously, trying to look for upside on DXY is quite difficult. Reason being, if we go to the weekly, you can see there we've got a key liquidity point there. It's a monthly fair value gap high as well, which if we are going to go up and we are looking a bit more bullish on DXY, coming into this range would make sense as a fib to come back into the discount to go back up. Now, if we're going to go to the weekly, we're going to see that the imbalance feels too high. We've got a lot of daily imbalances we've left as well. But we can see we've closed below 104. Now, what I don't like about this is Thursday and Friday were very low volume candles, but we did get that weekly close below. So really what I'm looking for, I would like to see a low formed, a pullback. If we get confirms, sell. If we take this wick out first, I'd be expecting a deeper pullback. Does that mean I'm going to go and play a counter trade? Not necessarily. Really, it's unlikely. I will wait for the best setup to form. There's no real liquidity being generated within this area right now because we're so low. But if we see some consolidation, maybe we're going to get that liquidity generated for us to break out to the upside. As for EU, it's very similar. We're above 107.5. Similarly, you can see there's a lot of uncertainty around this area on the monthly time frame, all going back even within this area. So once again, we may have issues breaking this area on the monthly. I'm looking out for that. I'm also looking out that already on the previous week, we can see here, we have this high, which is similar to DXY as liquidity, which is also monthly fair value gap low. This is the area I'm expecting price to run up to. And if we were to look back at that weekly print that we saw back in 2022, which happened around here, it almost looks identical. Why the pattern matters is this was our liquidity. So we can even mark it up, is that this big bullish candle didn't take out liquidity here. We actually saw the same thing over here. That weekly candle failed to take out the liquidity. Now what I'm interested in is to see how this week acts, because during this week, back in 2022, we actually cleared the high of the previous week. We took out liquidity, and then you can see there we come into POIs to the left and we close bearish for the week. So if we do something similar here, we may, because we still have areas to retest, which we want to see price really hold this area before we go to the next high, and we come up to 110, which is a massive key level, psychologically, institutionally, all that good stuff. We now can see that if we get that pullback, the buys are on. If we take out this wick first, we're going to get a pullback. More than likely, it's a key liquidity point. There is a lot of liquidity there for us to get that pullback. But obviously, it's very bullish. and you're overextended to some extent on the daily, the buys are kind of done at the minute. So we're going to have to see how we act. GU on the other hand is still, you can see the monthly time frame. We have that issue around this key level 128. We may still get a pullback from that. We can see the liquidity points a little bit higher though. And you can see that the weekly liquidity is way higher. Really on the daily and the weekly, there's no POIs that we're having issues at until we kind of come up into that liquidity. So I'm really looking at upside on GU continuing. There's nothing here to have issues at. I'm expecting price, realistically, without a pullback, to probably come into 130 minimum first before we get a pullback. So really, I'm not going to buy at the highs. I'm waiting for the pullbacks to start the week. So we see what Monday does. We've retested 104 and we closed doji. We closed weak. On the one hand, you've retested 104, but you haven't got confirmation that you're holding below 104. Why is that? Because there's no strength in the candle body. You haven't took out previous daily low, which is also previous weekly low. And what you can gather here is there was clearly a lot of order flow within that bearish leg until we got into the last 15-20%, which we are in now. When you can see the candle bodies are getting smaller and smaller, it suggests that we're struggling. And what we're going to need generally is a pullback to trigger more liquidity. You can see here from the very start of the month, every single day has not seen a previous daily high break. It's all fine when you're getting these big candles. It's when you start seeing that, the sells are dying out and it's just obvious. And then you can start to look to the left and go, okay, what area are we having issues at the minute? It'd be this order block. So you'd look at this and go, okay, at the minute, we're not breaking this. We've had 2 taps into 50%. And I would say at this point, you haven't seen a rejection to this daily POI, which is very important. But I would rather see a pullback into this daily before we come and clear this low. Am I going to then take a buy? No. Am I going to take a sell on EU? Well, let's see what Monday done. Well, no. Like, we've come up again. At this point, we're also coming into this, I believe. Yeah, we've seen price come up into this order block as well. Very important area here. So you've seen that. And Monday's just not even come into it. We're still in this fair value gap, of course. So you could mark that out instead if you liked that a little bit more. But you would say, okay, are we going to sell this? Well, no, because the buying pressure is so high. I'm not going to sell off an idea that we might come down. And you can even see this within the 4 hour. You can see the 4 hour low that created the high. Until you really see like solid breaks below that to give yourself at least a bearish leg to try and sell off, you're just consolidating in here. And all it takes is a bit more volume or fundamental news that drove this move for you to get stopped out. And I would say it's the best part of sitting on your hands here until you get really more trend moves, or if you're very sure on a counter confirm, which is based on, for me, on daily bias. We can see here Monday. So we actually saw this pullback on Monday on GU. We closed bearish. We come into this daily fair value gap and we took out Thursday's low. That could have been the liquidity to get us to go higher. Now, once again, I was actually looking during this period of time. I was looking at a move coming into Tuesday if we hadn't come in and cleared this liquidity. But because we've done that here, my idea was kind of invalid. Not only that, DXY doesn't really look like it's going to go down. So I was going to stay out of that move. There was no idea for real buys there on GU, even though I was more confident on GU continuing up. There just wasn't any move on the next day. You can see GU on Tuesday took out previous weekly high, carried on, or even current weekly high because Monday broke previous weekly high. So you can imagine how many people are trying to sell here based on trying to get a pullback that doesn't actually exist yet. And I used to be there all the time. I used to try and play these moves. And you can see DXY actually then took out that liquidity. So it kind of made sense, you know. You saw weekly close below 104. You saw a retest. And then when volume got injected into the market, we come and cleared the liquidity. Now, if you're going to be looking at upside on DXY, some dollar strength, that's the time to look at it. But you're still not getting any confirms on the daily time frame for that. And even as for EU, you know, we took out and we come into the monthly fair value gap. We then come into this order block here. We previously had an issue out and we saw the huge sell-off from. So of course, the sells from here were huge. There's so much liquidity stacking up around here. You have POIs, you have liquidity. We're going to see a pullback more than likely. Not yet though, because there's no confirmation. You're still closing strong bullish. Previous weekly highs being cleared. Really, looking at that previous 2022 case study, looking at that area, what we saw around that area was we saw something like this. We cleared that previous weekly high liquidity. We then broke down, we got the retest, and then we carried on up. So I'm already in my head now thinking, all right, we might get this pullback. I want to wait and see if we can get the buys when we get that pullback. But I'm very much interested in how this weekly closes as well. So already Tuesday, I'm thinking there's no moves this week, realistically. And then we go into Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday closed bullish on DXY. Not a convincing bullish close. There's no way that you're trying to be looking at upside from that, from at least how I trade. I would have liked to see something a bit clearer. But what we actually have come into here is we seem to have had a further tap into this previous daily FVG, which we saw 1, 2, 3 candles tap it. That's how I would move my POIs further. If we're continuing to especially take out the order block low, I would say probably at that point you're looking at this next area, and you can see we're even struggling at that. What you can gather then from the next 2 candles is you still haven't seen a previous daily high been taken the whole of March, and that's why I've not been able to trade, is because unless I'm wrong, which I took losses from up here on price continuing up, I a lot of the time trade off previous daily highs or lows being broken, and we haven't seen that yet. That's how I know there was no moves for me to catch. That's how you know 3 days in the week you've only moved 80 pips. It's not great. Of course, then we see a bearish candle on EU. A lot of traders will be looking at sells off that. For me, again, I don't see the previous daily low taken out. I don't see an engulfing bearish candle. I don't see enough strength in the sells. You can even see this still from price. It's still creating nice strong legs on the 4 hour. Even if you go down to the 1 hour, you can see here at a minimum, until you see this low break to try and trade something like that for a sell, for a pullback, you're just going to get caught out in potential upside. Or even still, if you get in a sell, you might win, but it might be a very slow trade. If you want to get in the quick, snappy volume moves, you need to see the confirms and the confluences stack up. After we see that, we're looking at now, okay, we might get a pullback. Yesterday, we saw a pullback. We got the pullback. Yet again, the reason why I would look at these more as pullbacks than actual potential trend changes or huge fake outs to this weekly is when you look at these candles compared to the big, strong bullish candles, they're minor. They haven't got big top wicks that take out the previous daily highs. And still up to this point, we haven't seen EU take a previous daily low if we've been bullish, or take a previous daily high if we've been pushing bearish, which just means at the minute there's not much volume in the markets to be trading, and it is best to sit out because you're going to get stuck in ranges. We see DXY, we go to this current moment. I'm not sure why it's clouded over. We'll reload. You can see here all we've done yesterday, come back up to 104. What do we do? Cleared current weekly high. That could be it for us to come down. We've currently made a new weekly wick. Today's made a further weekly high wick, which later in the week, if we're going to see liquidity taken and then we see a current weekly high break, it's not as convincing that we're going to now see a further bottom weekly wick all the way coming down into here. So you've got to start questioning, are we actually going to get a bearish close on DXY for the week? Probably not. But like I said, if we can get something similar to what happened over here during this period where we got a candle retesting, which we're going to potentially see, and then we see next week take out the current weekly high that we've got here and drop, we could see us come deeper into this monthly fair value gap. That's what I'm eyeing up. Ultimately, if we go on EU, we can see if we can get this bearish weekly close or a weak bullish close. I would be eyeing up. We're obviously going to create a huge imbalance here. It's quite big, but that's where I would then look, okay, it's 200-300 pip fair value gap on the weekly. I'm more looking at the key level. That's what I'm more interested in. Can we get confirms? When we previously saw that over to the left, we saw that weekly close. And let's have a look on the daily how we ended up moving up. And I could be completely wrong. We could fake out this week, close below 107.5 and carry on down next week. But it's important to look at previous patterns because this is how the market's moved before when we've seen identical price action. If we go to this, you can see here we struggled. We started seeing smaller bullish candles. We started seeing candles here, them two candles look identical to yesterday's and Wednesday's candles. And then we see what happens here. We get a pullback and then we close below. And this is where everyone starts to think it sells. This is a Monday candle. We get the retest, we get confirms, and then we take out the high. And then you come back into this and we go further up. So we start to create the higher structure again. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm still bullish on EU. I'm still looking for the upside. I will obviously change my bias for that if we clearly go back to it. What would make me not want to see upside is of course, if we were to see something like this, we pull back, we retest, and we get confirms, we may pull back deeper into this bullish leg to get maybe buys back down at 105 because that level still hasn't been retested. So really, I'm mostly eyeing up EU. I'm eyeing up the buys. GU, am I looking at anything for next week? What would I be looking for? I think it's clear at this point that this push down has not been enough to continue up. We may see this. I'd rather see that. We've created a solid high here. If we can take out this and then see a previous weekly low break, which will be that low from this week, and that should give us the continued upside. Obviously as well, we have got this area completely unmitigated. We could come back all the way down, but that's why at the minute I'm not going to play a sell anywhere past that. I need liquidity to play, and at the minute I just don't see enough from these candles to suggest you want to play a sell to that from the daily bias, because I trade off daily bias. I don't trade off 4 hour, 1 hour. Mainly it's 4 hour daily bias. If I see a confirm, I trade it. If I don't see price giving enough on the day before, I'll sit out. So yeah, at the minute, we're not really seeing anything in particular for the GU coming down. We've just had GDP come out worse than expected. We've gone back into slower economic growth, which could at least push us back into the 128 level. And really, I'm looking for the weekly close. We would definitely suggest that if we close like this, it isn't the best close. We're pretty much around where we started the week on all three of these, which shows that there's been no volume for the week. And we're waiting for bank rate, Fed rate next week for UK and US to give us them pushes. So look out for that move next week. I'll be really eyeing up that move and hopefully can catch something with that. I may get the analysis completely right, but I won't take a trade if it doesn't line up how I like. But we want to be seeing retests and pullbacks. And if you were buying a bit high up here, obviously that could be in your strategy. I would just be more patient. You can see how the volume's dying out and you're going to need more liquidity. So yeah, that's what we're looking for going into next week. I've had 2 losses for the month. I'm down 2R. I'm sitting on my hands because all it's going to take is one trade and I'll get payouts again. And I'll progress the funded challenges. And that is what being a funded trader is all about, is realizing that you've accumulated some funded accounts. You've got a privilege to be able to trade them and have them. And sometimes, as long as you don't go over the inactive days, you can obviously place a 0.01 on to keep it going. You need to be sitting on your hands because all it takes is that next win to get the payout. Doesn't mean you've got to get a payout every 2 weeks. Sometimes you won't. Sometimes you'll wait 2 payout periods. You won't get a payout to the third. But what rush are you in? I really see this as a long-term career. I see myself in 10 years still trading. Now, whether I'll be off prop firms or not is another story. But at the minute I am. And at the minute I need to trade within the rules. I need to grow my live account and enjoy the process. Enjoy being right in the market. Being right when you don't trade. And as long as you can be right 70% of the time when you don't trade, when you do trade, you'll probably be even more accurate because you're taking trades when you feel the most confident. And it's okay to sit out. Don't feel like you're slowing down or your progress is being halted by not trading, because trust me, if you aren't trading aligning with your plan, long term, you will completely lose. So that's all I've got for you guys this week. Obviously, I'll be back next week to see if we get that push. And yeah, I'll call it here first if we do. But yeah, take care, guys. See you in the next one. Peace out.